April 25, 1861. I belong to the Charlotte Grays, Company C, 1st North Carolina Regiment. We left home for Raleigh. Our company is commanded by Captain Egbert Ross. We are all boys between the ages of 18 and 21. We offered our services to Governor Ellis, but were afraid he would not take us, as we are so young. But before we were called out, our company was ordered to go to the United States Mint in our town and take same. We marched down to it, and it was surrendered to us. We guarded it several days when we were ordered to Raleigh and left on the above date. Our trip was full of joy and pleasure, for at every station where our train stopped, the ladies showered us with flowers and Godspeed. We marched to the fairgrounds. The streets were lined with people, cheering us. When we got there, our company was given quarters, and lo and behold, horse stables with straw for bedding is what we got. I know we all thought it a disgrace for us to sleep in such places with our fine uniforms, not even a washstand or any place to hang our clothes on. They didn't even give us a looking glass. Our company was put in the 1st North Carolina Regiment, commanded by Colonel D.H. Hill, Lieut. Col. C.C. Lee, and Major James H. Lane. We enlisted for 6 months. Our state went out of the Union on May 20th, and we were sent to Richmond, Va. on the 21st. Stayed there several days when we were ordered to Yorktown, Va. Here they gave us tents to sleep in. This looked more like soul daring, but we would have liked to have had some of that straw in Raleigh. The day after we got here, our company was sent out with spades and shovels to make breastworks. And to think of the indignity. We were expected to do the digging. Why, of course, I never thought that this was work for soldiers to do, but we had to do it. Gee, what hands I had after a few days' work. I know I never had a pick or a shovel in my hand to work with in my life. A few days after that, a squad of us were sent out to cut down trees, and by George, they gave me an axe and told me to go to work. Well, I cut all over my tree until the lieutenant commanding, seeing how nice I was marking it, asked me what I had done before I became a soldier. I told him I was a clerk in a dry goods store. He said he thought so from the way I was cutting timber. He relieved me, but what insults are put on us who came to fight the Yankees. Why, he gave me 2 buckets and told me to carry water to the men that could cut. We changed camp several times until about the 3d of June, when we marched 15 miles and halted at Bethel Church, and again commenced making breastworks. Our rations did not suit us. We wanted a change of diet, but there were strict orders from Colonel D.H. Hill that we should not go out foraging. Well, Bill Stone, Ailey Todd, and myself put on our knapsacks and went to the creek to wash our clothes, but when we got there we forgot to wash. We took a good long walk away from the camp and saw several shoats. We ran one down, held it so it could not squeal, then killed it, cut it in small pieces, put it in our knapsacks, returned to the creek, and from there to camp, where we shared it with the boys. It tasted good. Our comrade Earnhardt did not fare so well. He went to a place where he knew he could get some honey. He got it all right, but he got the bees also. His face and hands were a sight when he got the beehive to camp. June 10th. At 3 o'clock this morning, the long roll woke us up. We fell in line, marched about 5 miles, then counter-marched as the Yankees were advancing on us. We got to our breastworks a short time before the Yankees came, and firing commenced. We gave them a good reception with shot and shell. The fight lasted about 4 hours. Our company was behind the works that held the line where the major of the Yankee regiment, Winthrop, was killed. After he fell, our company was ordered to the church, but was soon sent back to its former position. This is the first land battle of the war, and we certainly gave them a good beating. But we lost one of our regiment, Henry Wyatt, who was killed while gallantly doing a volunteer duty. 7 of our men were wounded. The Yankees must have lost at least 200 men in killed and wounded. It was their boast that they could whip us with cornstalks, but to their sorrow they found that we could do some fighting too. After the fight, some of the boys and myself went over the battlefield, and we saw several of the Yankee dead, the first I had ever seen, and it made me shudder. I am now in a school where sights like this should not worry me long. Our commander in this fight was Colonel Bankhead Magruder. The Yankee commander was General B.F. Butler. From now on, I will never again grumble about digging breastworks. If it had not been for them, many of us would not be here now. We returned the same night to Yorktown, full of glory. On July 18th, we heard that our boys had again whipped the Yankees at Bull Run. Also on July 21st, again at Manassas. We changed camp a number of times, made fortifications all around Yorktown, and when our 6 months were over, we were disbanded and returned home. So my experience as a soldier was over. I stayed home 5 months when I again took arms for the Old North State and joined a company raised by Captain Harvev White of Charlotte, and left our home on April 23, 1862. At 6:30 p.m. I stayed in Salisbury until next night, when I, with several others, took the train for Raleigh, where our company was. We went to the insane asylum to see Langfrade, who wanted to go home by telegraph to see his cotton and tobacco. After spending most of our day in town, we went to camp 4 miles from Raleigh. We stopped a carriage and the driver said he would take us to camp for $3. We halved it with him and he drove us there. We reported to Captain White and he showed us to our hut. We were surprised to find it without a floor, roof half off, and holey all over. We commenced repairing and went to the woods to chop a pole for a part of the bedstead. We walked about a mile before we found one to suit us. It was a hard job to get it to our hut. We put it up and put boards across and then put our bedding on it, which consisted of leaves we gathered in the woods. And now it is a bed fit for a king or a Confederate soldier. It commenced raining at dark, which compelled us to cover with our oilcloth coats. We did not get wet, but passed a bad night, as I had gotten used to a civilian's life again. May 31st, up to date nothing transpired worth relating, but this morning got orders to leave. Left at 6 a.m., our company got passenger cars and the balance of our regiment had to take boxcars. June 1st, arrived at Weldon, North Carolina at 7 o'clock. We set up our tents at Garrisburg, a short march from Weldon. Our company is close to the railroad track. We collected broom straw and made a bed of down of it. June 2nd, we received some visitors from home. June 3rd, raining all day but have a good time with the ladies in this neighborhood. They treated my comrade and myself only as Southern ladies know how to treat their soldiers, with respect and something good to eat. June 4th, still raining and the roads are very muddy. June 5th, we were marched to town and received our arms, Springfield muskets. Next day went off very quietly. June 7th. At U o'clock tonight we were roused out of our sleep and marched to Weldon Bridge, as the river was so swift that it was thought the bridge would wash away. We went there to knock the sides off so that the water could run over it, but we got there without tools. When they came, the water was receding, so we returned to camp. June 8th. I am very tired from our first night's march. June 20th. Up until circumflex this date, there has been nothing worth recording, but today got orders to fall in line with 2 days' rations cooked. Left at 12 m in boxcars. We knocked holes in them to get fresh air. We laid over 6 hours 8 miles from Garrisburg in order to let the passenger cars pass us. Several of our company left the train in quest of supper. We found a house where a lady promised to give us supper for 50 cents each. As we were doing full justice to her supper, the train started. We left in a hurry and did not have time to pay for our meal. I don't suppose she gave us her blessing. June 21st. We reached Petersburg, Vermont this morning at 2:30 and had barely laid down with a brick wall for my pillow when breakfast was announced in the shape of Mac Sample, who told us where we could get it. I ran the blockade with Katz and went to see Mike Ettlinger. He was not at home. Afterward, we met Wertheim and we all went again and got something good to eat. We then returned to our regiment, which is the 53d North Carolina Regiment Infantry, Colonel William Owens, commander. We are enlisted for 3 years or the war. We fell in line and marched to our camp, which is on Dunn's Hill, just outside of the city. June 22nd. Nothing new. June 23rd. Moved our camp 2 miles up the road toward Richmond. It is a very bad camp, low ground and muddy. But there is a factory here and plenty of girls to make up for the damp ground. June 24th. We had a drill today and went to town to see some friends. June 25th. Reported fighting near Richmond. June 26th. We received marching orders this morning. The long roll beat at 1 in the night. We marched 4 miles on to Richmond, where we met some wounded of our army that had been injured the point of rocks. We got to this place after marching all night, too late for the Yanks. They had gone. We stayed here until the 28th, then marched to Drury's Bluff, 20 miles from Petersburg. June 29th, arrived at Drury's Bluff this morning. Here we met our brigade, commanded by General Daniels. The brigade has 5 regiments, all North Carolina troops composed of the 43D, 53D, 32D, 45th and the 2D North Carolina battalions. When we got to our brigade, we were left at Drury's Bluff, and the brigade marched on to Richmond, and we stayed here until the 30th. June 30th, heard firing at Richmond. We are 8 miles from there and in reserve. July 1st, there is nothing new, only we can see the lines of battle over the river. They are still fighting around Richmond. July 4th, this is the day the Yankee General McClellan promised to eat dinner in our capital. He did not, but numbers of his command did. That is, in our prisons. But they did not get any turkey. July 6th, we got orders to march this morning. Left here with 2 days' rations of cornmeal and bacon in our haversacks. We got to Petersburg in the evening, 15 miles, after a hard march. It is very warm and we did not rest on the way as it was a forced march. We camped on Dunn's Hill. July 7th, we returned to our factory girls again. All okay, you bet. July 27th, had a few friends visit us from home and moved camp twice. Tonight we were ordered to fall in line. Went to Petersburg and there took the cars for Weldon. On the road a dreadful accident occurred. On the flat car that we were on, a captain of the Navy with us had his leg cut off by a sheet of iron flying off the flat. Lieutenant McMatthews, Henry Wertheim, and myself were knocked down, but not badly hurt. The captain died 2 days after. July 31st, up to this time, there is nothing new. We are camped at Weldon. August 1st, from date to the 4th, nothing. We have a good camp. August 5th, we received marching orders today. We embarked on the train at Weldon, went down the Seaboard Road a distance of 25 miles, and marched from there to Roberts Chapel. Our company and Company D were the only ones that went. We got there at 10 o'clock at night and laid in the woods until morning. August 6th, we fell in line and returned. We marched to Boykins and took the cars to our regiment again. This expedition was to capture Yankees that are stealing Negroes. When we got there, they had left. Up to August 19th, nothing new. We have a very good time here by ourselves, get plenty to eat from the ladies and visit them whenever we can get out of camp. August 20th, left here at 6 p.m. and arrived at Petersburg at 3 o'clock in the morning. Took the same bed that I had the last time, the sidewalk, and the wall for my pillow. Katz, Hugh Sample, Bat Harry, Lieutenant Belk, and some others were left behind, sick. August 21st, left at 4 a.m. and arrived in Richmond at 6 p.m. Marched to Camp Lee 2 miles from the city and put up any tent we could get hold of as it was raining very hard and too dark to see. We are all okay now. August the 22nd, Sam Oppenheim of the 44th North Carolina Regiment, an old comrade of the 1st North Carolina Regiment, came to see me. He is stationed on the other side of the city. August 23rd, went uptown to see my brother Morris of the 44th Georgia Regiment, but his regiment had already gone to Gordonsville, so I returned to camp. August 26th, up to date, did not get half enough to eat. August 27th, 3 of our companies got Enfield rifles today. August 28th, ordered to Drury's Bluff. We left Richmond at 8 p.m. and got there at 2 a.m. We are camping on the old oat patch near our former camp. August 29th, Lieutenant Belk, whom we left at Weldon, sick, returned to us today. August 30th, our company went to work today throwing up breastworks. August 31st, still digging dirt. September 1st, Wertheim and myself went to Halfway Station to get a box that was sent to us from home, but it did not come. September 9th, up to today, nothing new. Our regiment was paid off today, we receiving 1 month's wages, $11 for a private, which I have the honor to be. September 18th, nothing new, only plenty of bad weather and hard work. We received marching orders at 9 a.m. We arrived in Petersburg at 5 p.m., saw several friends there, left Petersburg at 8 o'clock that night in cars for Wakefield. Arrived there at 11 a.m. September 19th, left Wakefield at 9 p.m. and marched 20 miles. Laid in the woods without shelter, and it raining very hard. Therefore did not need to wash myself in the morning. September 20th. Resumed our march at 6 o'clock this morning. Arrived at Black's Church after 3 hours' march, then turned about and tramped 9 miles and camped for the night at Joiner's Church. September 21st, left here at 6 p.m., marched 9 miles and halted for dinner. Our company being rear guard of the brigade, we had a hard time of it, as the roads are very muddy, and we had to keep up all the stragglers. We reached Wakefield at 5 a.m. and laid in the woods and mud for the night. September 22nd. We laid here all day. Cars came for us from Petersburg tonight and took us back. Got there at 12 at night, marched 1 mile and camped for the night. September 23. Left here this morning at 10 o'clock and got to our old camp at 4 o'clock this evening. This expedition was to strengthen Longstreet's forces near Suffolk. We got there after he was relieved and the siege of Suffolk abandoned. September 27th. Up to today, nothing new, only today is my New Year, the Jewish New Year. October. This month passed off with nothing new except Katz returned on the 7th and Donau was discharged. We are still on our old camp. November 5th. There is nothing for me to write. Today, Wertheim and myself went to Petersburg to get a box that was sent from home, and while there we had a very good time. November 6th. We commenced to put up winter quarters today. It is very cold and sleeting. November 7th. It commenced to snow this morning at 6 o'clock and continued until 1 in the afternoon. It is 3 inches deep. We got some whiskey into camp which tasted very good and made us forget the cold. The balance of this month passed off very quietly. We are hard at work on our winter huts. December 1st and 2. We moved into our winter quarters. They are very good and strong. There are 10 men in each hut. December 3rd. Katz and myself went to Petersburg today. We met with friends, and the consequence you can imagine. The headache we had next day was caused by too much whiskey. December 8th. My birthday today. I am a man 21 years old, but I must say that I have been doing a man's duty before I was 21, providing a soldier's duty as a man's. I spent today in bringing mud to our palace for a fireplace. December 13th. There was nothing to record up to the 13th, but today had division review from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. December 14th. Rumored that we will leave Virginia for North Carolina. December 15th. Sure enough. Got orders to cook 5 days' rations. We started at 2 a.m. and got to Petersburg at 8 o'clock that night. I ran the blockade and went uptown and stayed all night and had a very good time. December 16th. I returned this morning and was not missed. We left here with the cars at 8 a.m. and got to Weldon at 3 p.m. on the 17th. December 17th, laid in an old field until 8 p.m. and suffered a great deal from cold. We left here on flat cars and rode all night on them. We arrived at Goldsboro at 10 a.m. on the 18th. The ladies on the road, especially those at Wilson, were very kind to us. They gave us plenty to eat, which we were very much in need of. December 18th. We marched through town and lay all night in an open field without tents. It is certainly bitter cold. The only fires we could make were from the fence rails, as the woods were too far for us to get to. December 19th. We got away from the open field at 12 m. and went 2 miles out of town and camped in the woods. We met the Bethel Regiment today. I met quite a number of old friends and comrades of my old company. We compared notes on soldiering. We came to the conclusion that at Yorktown we were playing soldier, but now there is no play in it. We are expecting a fight every hour. December 20th. Went uptown today on French leave, and when I returned was put on guard duty for going. December 21st. I went to the creek to wash my clothing and myself, and when I got back the water had frozen on my head so that I was obliged to hold my head by the fire so as to thaw it out. Wertheim's eyes are so bad that he can hardly see. Sam Wilson broke his shoulder blade. December 25th. There is nothing new up to today, Christmas. We moved our camp a little piece. Egenbrunn came to see us today from home and brought me a splendid cake from Miss Clara File. This is certainly a hard Christmas for us. Bitter cold, raining and snowing all the time, and we have no tents. The only shelter we have is a blanket spread over a few poles, and gather leaves and put them in that shelter for a bed. December 26th. I got vaccinated today by Captain Harvey White. It was raining very hard and we all are as wet as dish rags. December 31st. All is quiet up to today, the last of the year. It is still very cold. The year 1863, January 1. This month we have done nothing but move our camp once and drill. Had to send all our baggage away. Hereafter, nothing more will be hauled for us in wagons. There are rumors flying about that we will soon leave here. February 1st and 2. There is nothing new but cold, cold, cold. February 4th. This morning at 4 o'clock we were waked up by the pleasant sound of long roll. We were ordered to get ready to march. It is very cold, snow 9 inches deep. We laid in Goldsboro until noon, expecting to get cars to take us away, but were then told we would have to march to Kinston. We took up our line of march at 3 in the evening and halted at dark. It is truly awful. The snow is very deep and as cold as thunder. We marched 8 miles without resting. We then fixed our bed in the snow and stole fodder for a bed and rails to make fire. We took snow, put it in our kettles, and made coffee. When I say coffee, I mean Confederate coffee, parched corn. That is our coffee. Ate our cornbread and bacon and retired to our couches and slept as good if not better than Abe Lincoln. February 5. Resumed our promenade at 7 this morning, and for a change it is raining hard. Therefore the snow is melting. Consequently the roads are nice and soft. Halted at 3 this evening, still raining. We made ourselves as comfortable as possible, made a good fire to dry ourselves by, but the worst of it is we have no rations, and the wagons are behind. We went to sleep in our wet clothing, with a cup of coffee as our supper. It rained and snowed all night. February 6th, nothing to eat yet. Wertheim W. Eagle and myself went out foraging to buy something to eat. We got to one house and there was no one at home, but in the yard there were 2 chickens, which we captured, for we were afraid they would bite us. We went to the next house and ate our breakfast. One of the ladies asked us where we got those chickens. I told her that we bought them at the house before we got there. She told us she lived there and that there was nobody at home. I then told her the truth, paid her for them, and left. The next house we got to, we bought a ham, a peck of meal, a peck of sweet potatoes, and some turnips. We took dinner in this house. We then returned to camp. We had a good reception from our mess, as they had still nothing to eat. February 7th. We could not march yesterday as the streams were too high from the recent rains and snow. We left today at 12 m and got 1 day's rations, hard enough to fell a bull. Marched on the railroad track all the afternoon. The main road was impassable. We got to Kinston at 4 in the afternoon and made camp in a swamp, 2.5 miles out of town. We had nothing to eat but slept good for all that. February 8th. Wertheim and myself went uptown to get something to eat. We got cornbread and bacon. On our road back to camp, we bought 4 more dodgers of cornbread and gave it to our mess companions who did not go uptown. Our regiment moved on the other side of town in an old pine thicket. February 9th. We established a regular camp here. This last march has been a very hard one, and only a distance of 30 miles. But it took us from Wednesday to Saturday, through snow, rain, and mud, ankle deep and without rations. Kinston is a perfect ruin, as the Yankees have destroyed everything they could barely touch. But it must at one time have been a very pretty town. But now nothing scarcely but chimneys are left to show how the Yankees are trying to reconstruct the Union. February 13th. Nothing new. We have been fixing our camps. Our company has built log huts from 2 to 3 feet high, and then put our tents over them, building a chimney to each hut or tent, and we are very comfortable. We got orders to cook 2 days' rations and be ready to march in 2 hours, but did not have to go. In fact, nothing new until the 25th. February 25th. Henry Wertheim was sent home on a sick furlough, as he is very bad off. February 26. 2 men out of our regiment were whipped for desertion. They were undressed all but pants and shoes, tied to a post, and each given 39 lashes on their bare backs. The balance of this month nothing new, only very cold. March 5th, up to today there is nothing worth recording, although we are getting black as Negroes on account of our burning green pine. March 6th. Several of us out of our company went to Kinston in the battlefield. The Yankees are very poorly buried, as we saw several heads, hands, and feet sticking out of the ground, where the rain had washed the dirt off of them. March 12th. We have had orders several times for the last 6 days to march, and a part of our brigade has had a fight. But this morning we took up our march at 5 o'clock. I saw General D.H. Hill on the road and spoke to him as well as his adjutant. They are friends from home and comrades of our 1st North Carolina Regiment. We marched 20 miles and halted for the night, laid in line of battle all night with arms by our side. March 13th. Resumed our march at 8 this morning, got 8 miles when we got to our extreme picket posts. They told us the Yankees were 1.25 miles from us. Then we marched half a mile further when our artillery commenced the fight. It kept on all day, but very light. We drove in their pickets and advanced our line until dark. We are 8 miles from Newbern, marched 11 miles, March 14. This morning at daybreak, cannonading was heard by us from General Pettigrew's line, which is on our left flank. We immediately fell into line of battle. Our artillery opened fire. Then we infantry advanced our line on the Yankees. We halted in an old field and had for a breastwork a rail fence. We fought for 4 hours, hot at times. We had a number killed and wounded. The enemy fell back on their stronghold, Newbern. This battle is called the Battle of Deep Gully, as it was fought on that stream. We then took up our march again for Kinston. We got 11 miles and halted for the night. Our company was the rear guard of the brigade. March 15th. Laid here all day with 2 crackers for our rations, and these we got at night. March 16th. A picket came in this morning and reported the enemy advancing. We were put in line of battle to receive them, and after marching 1 mile up the road to get to our brigade, we were put at the extreme left of our line and made breastworks out of rotten logs. Stayed here 1 hour when another picket came and reported them 10 miles away. So we resumed our march for camp and got there at 7 o'clock, 21 miles today. Tom Notter, Aaron Katz, and myself pressed into service today a donkey and a cart with a Negro who took us to Kinston. Each of us drove at times, and I was fortunate enough to stall in a mud hole. We had to get out and lift the cart and donkey to dry ground again. Thus ends the march and fight at Deep Gully. March 20. Katz went home today on a furlough. Nothing new up to the 23D March 23rd. We had a man whipped today in our regiment for desertion. March 24th. Commenced marching this morning, got 17 miles and halted. Laid here in the woods until the 27th. Went to several houses and had a good time with ladies and eatables up to the 29th. March 29th. Here still, but positively don't know where we are. March 30th. Left this morning at 5 o'clock, marched 15 miles. Waded clay-bottom swamps 3/4 of a mile long. This is in Pitt County, North Carolina. We then camped in the woods and made fires to dry ourselves with. March 31st, left at 7 this morning, marched 6 miles, waded several creeks, and arrived at Swift Creek at 11. This is a small village. We camp here for the night. April 1st, left here on the Little Washington Dirt Road at 7 this morning. Marched 17 miles and halted 3 miles from Washington. This is a Yankee post. Heard firing all day, and we are ordered to keep our cartridge boxes on us and our guns by our sides, as we may move any moment. April 2nd. Our regiment was sent on picket this morning at daylight. 1 mile from camp and 2 miles from the enemy. Companies B and G are on the left, A and D on the right, F and I in the center. We are within hailing distance of the Yankee line of pickets. There is not much firing. Tom Teotter and I are on the color guard. We have nothing to do if we don't want to, except stay with the colors. So this evening at 4 o'clock, we went as near the Yankees as we dared, to see the town of Washington. Saw the place, their breastworks and their camps very plainly. We then returned and slept on our arms all night. That is, we tried to sleep, but could not for the infernal noise from the owls that are in the swamps around us. April 3. Little Washington is on Tar River, and as one of the Yankee gunboats was trying to get in, one of our cannon gave them a ball, which caused heavy firing all day, and in fact the shells came very close to our flag, which made us dodge pretty smart. We have Washington besieged. At 8 o'clock tonight, Colonel Owens called for volunteers to go as near the Yankees as they could to see what they were doing. Tom T. Otter and myself went. We got to within 200 yards of Washington when we were compelled to halt as we were near the bridge, where we could hear the Yankee sentinels walking their beats very plainly. So we returned to camp and reported. April 4th, firing at intervals all day. The reserve was sent to the river to support our artillery. The colors went with them. It is raining hard. We laid in line 2.5 hours in an old field. It is very cold. The Yankees are firing all the time. Then the 43D Regiment came and relieved us. Cats came in today and reported Henry Wertheim dead. He died Monday, March 30th. April 5th, everything is quiet on our line today. April 6th, a little firing today. Went to the river to throw up breastworks. Worked all night. We put up one piece of cannon right on the riverbank, but had to work all night in the swamp to do so. Wet. Carried sandbags for breastworks to protect the artillerymen. April 7th. Today the firing was very heavy. We hit the Yankee gunboat again today and made the dust fly out of their breastworks. April 8th. This morning Tom Teater, Katz, and myself went with Captain White to meet 3 Yankees with a flag of truce. But they would not come halfway, so Colonel Owens ordered us back. We 3 went to our siege gun and saw the town very plainly. They fired at us while we were there. The fire was returned, and we could see the Yankees dodge. April 9th. We were relieved this morning by the 32D Regiment and marched to Bellevue, where the balance of our brigade is. At 11 o'clock tonight, we were ordered to march. We went 15 miles. There was a fight there today, marched all night without resting. April 10th, got to our line at 6 this morning. The Yankees had fallen back. They had 19 regiments and 21 pieces of artillery. They in a hurry. One of their colonels was killed, and I don't know how many men. We left Blount Creek Bridge at 4 this evening, marched 9 miles on our way back to Bellevue. We met the Bethel Regiment, and I met several friends of my old company. April 13th. Up to date, they are firing at Fort Hill and Washington all the time. April 14th. Nothing. April 15th. Raining very hard. We have a blanket spread over poles to keep us dry. We got orders to march this evening. Went 5 miles through mud and water, and it raining like fury. I shall long remember this march, as well as a few others of my company. We fell in the mud several times, and were certainly beautiful objects to look at with our suits of mud, for we were completely covered with it. April 16th. At 7 this morning we resumed our march. Went 2 miles, halted a half hour, then turned about and went to our old camp. But again were ordered back at 2 p.m. to our picket posts, 1 mile from Washington. As we got there, the Yankees gave us a good reception in shot, shell, and musketry, but all the damage they did was to rail fences and perhaps a few owls that are plentiful in the swamps. Our line is on the edge of the swamp. They shelled heavy all night, but no lives were lost on our side. At 8 p.m. our pickets fired on them, but they did not respond. We laid here until 2 at night when we went to Bellevue under fire from the enemy. We stayed here the balance of the night. April 17th. At daylight this morning, our company was ordered to go on picket at Shingle Landing, 5 miles from Bellevue. I asked Colonel Moorhead to let me go with them, but he refused and said I should stay with the colors, but I went without his permission. In a march of 5 miles, we waded through 3 miles of swamp knee-deep. We are in a devil of a position. The enemy can cut us off from our command easily, as we cannot return, except through the swamp, which of course would be very slow progress. At 4 this evening, we were recalled and met our regiment on the march and fell in. Colonel Moorhead did not miss me from the colors. We marched 7 miles and halted for the night. April 18th. Left at 9 this morning and got to Greenville at 5 o'clock, 11 miles. This is a fine country, but hilly and hard marching. This is the end of the siege of Washington. We were there 16 days but could not draw the enemy out of their works. April 19th. Nothing today but rest, which we needed very much. April 20th. Went on picket this morning to the south side of the town across the river, but did not go on picket. Our company and Company G supported 2 pieces of artillery. I was again refused permission by Moorhead to go with my company, but I went all the same. April 21st. Nothing doing. April 22nd. Ordered to our brigade at 12 mid. April 23. Raining hard all day and night. No shelter. We got as wet as drowned cats. April 24th. This morning I was detailed by Colonel Owens to go to Wilson, NC to get the baggage for our officers. Left at 3 a.m. got to Tarboro at 7 p.m. This is a very pretty town. Stayed here until 3 and took the cars to Rocky Mount. Got there at 5, left at 7, and got to Wilson at 8 on the morning of the 25th. Got my baggage and left at 3 p.m. Arrived at Rocky Mount at 4. Saw some fun with a girl and an old woman. The young one had stole a petticoat from the old one and was compelled to take it off and return it in the presence of at least 50 men. Left at 8. Got to Tarboro at 9:15. April 26th. Left here this morning and took the same route that I came by. Our boat got to Greenville at 10 a.m. My regiment in my absence has gone 12 miles across the river to a place called Pacatolas. I followed them in a buggy and got there at 4 p.m. April 2Y. Left here at 3 this morning. Got to Greenville at 6 a.m. Stayed a quarter of an hour and marched to the crossroads 9 miles from town. Got there at 6 p.m. April 28th. Turned about this morning at 7. Got to Greenville at 10 and went to our former camp. Then got orders to return to Pacatolas in the morning. April 29th. We left this morning. The regiment was 2 miles on the road when we got orders to return. But Tom T. Otter and myself marched ahead of the regiment and had got 4 miles before we had found out that the regiment was not in our rear. When we got back, we were laughed at for our smartness. April 30th. Laid in camp and rested. May 1st. We left here this morning at 30 minutes after 4 for Kinston. Marched 11 miles without halting. May 2nd. Resumed our march at 6 a.m. and reached Kinston at 8 p.m., 24 miles today. May 3rd. We camped 1 mile from town. We left here on the 25th day of March and returned May 2nd. Went through a campaign of 27 days. In that time, we had Washington besieged 16 days. The balance of the time we were marching and counter-marching in all kinds of weather, and very often without anything to eat. May 4th and 5, nothing. May 6th, left here at 12 m for Core Creek, marched 9 miles and halted. Raining hard and we got well soaked. The rain ran down our faces all night, so we did not have to wash our faces on the morning of the 7th. May 7th, resumed our march at 8 a.m., got 10 miles and halted within 1 mile of the creek. We waded Gum Swamp, stayed there 3 hours, and turned about. Marched 9 miles tonight. This expedition was to tear up the New Bern and Kinston Railroad, and also bring some ladies and old men out of the Yankee lines, for they had been driven out of New Bern. There were about 70 in all. They were, of course, Southern people who would not take the oath of allegiance to the United States government, and therefore were driven out of their homes. May 8th. We left here at 8 a.m. to return to Kinston and got there at 3 p.m., 10 miles, awful road. Waded through mud, water, and sand the whole way. My feet are cut up pretty badly. May 9th and 10. Resting May 11th. We moved our camp to the north side of town. Then we were marched to an open field this afternoon and drawn up in line to see 2 men shot for desertion. After they were shot, we marched by them and saw one was hit 6 times and the other 4. Their coffins were by their sides, right close to their graves, so that they could see it all. May 17th. Up to today, nothing. But this morning at 4, we were ordered to cook up all our rations and be ready to march in 1 hour. We left Kinston by rail at 12 m. Got to Goldsboro at 3, went through to Weldon, left here at 5 p.m., and got to Petersburg Vati on the morning of the 18th. Left there at 6 p.m., Katz and myself went uptown, ate 2 suppers. Had a very good time while in town. We camped all night on Dunn's Hill. May 19th. Left here at 5 this morning, got to Richmond at 8 and are stationed at Camp Lee. We will tee off to march to Fredericksburg. Our brigade is transferred to the Army of Northern Virginia. William Cochran, myself, and several of our company ran the blockade tonight. Went uptown to a theater and got back to camp at 2 o'clock. We had a fine time while uptown. May 21st. Left this morning, marched 21 miles, halted at 5.30. It is a very hilly country, warm and dusty. May 22nd, marched 20 miles today and halted at 6 p.m. May 23rd, marched 15 miles and halted. On our today's march, we saw any amount of dead horses which did not smell altogether like cologne. May 24th, laid here all day, it being Sunday. May 25th, resumed our march this morning at 6, got 6 miles and halted. We pitched our camp here on a hill 2 miles from Fredericksburg. May 26th and 27, rested. I went to see my brother Morris, who belongs to Dowell's Brigade, 44th Georgia Regiment. Did not see him as he was on picket. May 28th, Morris came to see me today. We are both in the same division and corps. Our corps is commanded by General Ewell. May 29th, had a general review today. General Rhodes is our division commander. He and General Lee reviewed us. I see a great change in the appearance of General Lee. He looks so much older than when I saw him at Yorktown. Then his hair was black. Now he is a gray-headed old man. We have 5 brigades in our division. The commander of my brigade is General Daniels of North Carolina. 1 brigade of Georgians is commanded by General Dowells. Iverson of North Carolina has another brigade. Also General Ramseur of North Carolina has a brigade, and General Battle of Alabama has a brigade. Our corps is composed of 3 divisions, ours by General Rhodes, one by General Early and the other by General A. Johnson. May 30th. We see the Yankees in balloons every day reconnoitering our lines. June 1st and 2, nothing new. June 3rd. Saw my brother Morris several times. June 4th. Got orders to cook 3 days' rations immediately. We left our camp at 3 this morning, marched 14 miles and halted. We march 1 hour and rest 10 minutes. June 5th. Marched until 4 o'clock this evening. 20 miles today. June 6th. Marched 5 miles and halted for the day. June 7th. Left at 5 a.m. Got to Culpeper Courthouse 3 p.m. and marched 4 miles on the east side of town. 20 miles today. We waded Rapidan River, which is 40 yards wide, 2 feet deep and very swift. June 8th. Stayed here all day. June 9th. We were ordered to Beverly Ford to support General Jeb Stuart, who is engaging the Yankees, and they are having a very hard cavalry fight. Got here in a roundabout way and formed in line battle, with 2 lines of skirmishers in front. When we got to the Army of Northern Virginia, we were told that each company must furnish 1 skirmisher out of every 6 men, and there was a call for volunteers for that service. So I left the colors and went as a skirmisher, whose duty it is in time of battle to go in front of the line and reconnoiter and engage the enemy until a general engagement. Then we fall in line with balance of the army. As soon as the enemy saw that the cavalry were reinforced by infantry, they fell back. This was altogether a cavalry fight. We took quite a number of prisoners and camped 2 miles from the battlefield. We marched 12 miles today. June 10th, left here at 2 p.m., marched until 8 o'clock tonight, 12 miles. June 11th, resumed our march at 5 a.m., passed over 3 creeks that form the Rappahannock River, passed through a town called Flint Hill, and camped 1 mile on the north side of the town. Marched 16 miles today. June 12th, left at 5 a.m., marched over part of the Blue Ridge and crossed the head of the Rappahannock River, 18 miles today. We marched through Front Royal, where the ladies treated us very good, camped 1 mile north side of town and waded the Shenandoah, both prongs. June 13th, marched to Berryville, a Yankee post. Heard firing before we got there. We took the left flank a half mile this side of town and marched to the Winchester Turnpike. We then formed in line of battle with sharpshooters in front. We gave the rebel yell and charged. But when we got to their breastworks, the birds had flown. They did not take their nests with them. Their camp, with all their cooking utensils, quartermaster and commissary stores, were all left in our hands. They were evidently cooking a meal, for plenty of pots full of eatables were still on the fire when we got into their camp. We ate up all we could and filled our haversacks and pushed on 4 miles further, and halted for the night. It is raining very hard and there is, of course, no shelter for us. June 14th, left at 7 a.m., passed through Smithfield and Bunker Hill. The Yankees are still retreating in our front, on their way to Martinsburg, our own destination. We got there about 9 o'clock at night and drove them through the town, and in fact we felt like driving the devil out of his stronghold as this was a very warm day. We had to march in quick time all day, a distance of 25 miles. Therefore, we were not in the best of humor. This is a good-sized town. June 15th, left here at 11 a.m., and got to the Potomac River at dusk, a distance of 12 miles. We have as yet been very fortunate. Have driven the enemy from the Rapidan to the Potomac, captured prisoners, arms, camps, quartermaster and commissary stores, and the Yankees were any moment as strong in numbers as we, with the advantage of having breastworks to fight behind. Still, they always ran at our appearance. June 1st, 6, resting today. June 17th. We crossed the Potomac River today at 1 p.m. and camped in Williamsport, Maryland, on the banks of the Potomac. 2 miles today. The river is knee-deep. June 18th. The people are mixed in their sympathies, some Confederates and some Yankees. June 19th. Left at 8 a.m., and 7 miles took us to Hagerstown, Mad. Here the men greeted us very shabby, but the ladies quite the reverse. This town has 5,000 inhabitants and is a very pretty town. We camped on the Antietam. June 20th and 21. Raining hard. June 22nd, left this morning at 8 o'clock, got to Middleburg Pa at 11, passed through it, and got to Green Castle at 1:30. 11 miles today. The people seemed downhearted and showed their hatred to us by their glum looks and silence. And I am willing to swear that no prayers will be offered in this town for us poor ragged rebels. June 23rd, here all day. Tom Teater and myself went out to buy something to eat. But when we came to a house, they would close their doors in our faces, or let us knock and not open. We got the ear of 1 or 2 ladies, and after proving to them that we were not wild animals nor thieves, they gave us what we wanted, but would not take pay for anything. June 24th. Left here this morning, got to Chambersburg at 12 m. Went 3 miles on the north side of town on picket, 14 miles today. We passed through Marion, a small village. Chambersburg is a very fine place, 10,000 inhabitants, but nary a smile greeted us as we marched through town. There are a plenty of men here, a pity they are not rebels, and in our ranks. This city is in Franklin County, Cumberland Valley. We were woke up in the middle of the night and marched off, waded a river which was so cold that it woke us up. Passed through Greenville today at dawn. This town has, I should judge, about 5,000 inhabitants. 9 miles today. June 25th. Marched on, passed through Leesburg, Canada, Hawkinsville, and Centerville, all small villages. We got to Carlisle Pa at sundown. Marched 21 miles today. This city is certainly a beautiful place. It has 8,000 inhabitants, and we were treated very good by the ladies. They thought we would do as their soldiers do, burn every place we passed through. But when we told them the strict orders of General Lee, they were rejoiced. Our regiment was provost guard in the city, but were relieved by the 21 St. Georgia Regiment, and we went to camp at the U.S. Barracks. So far, we have lived very good in the enemy's country. We stayed here until the 30th, when we took the Baltimore Pike Road, crossed South Mountain at Holly Gap, passed through Papertown and Petersburg. We then left the Pike and took the Gettysburg Road, 17 miles today. This has been a hard day for us, as we were the rear guard of the division and it was very hot, close and very dusty, and a terrible job to keep the stragglers up. July way, we left camp at 6 a.m., passed through Heidelberg and Middleton. At the latter place we heard firing in the direction of Gettysburg. We were pushed forward after letting the wagon trains get in our rear. We got to Gettysburg at p.m., 15 miles. We were drawn up in line of battle about 1 mile south of town and a little to the left of the Lutheran Seminary. We then advanced to the enemy's line of battle in double quick time. We had not gotten more than 50 paces when Norman of our company fell dead by my side. Katz was going to pick him up. I stopped him, as it is strictly forbidden for anyone to help take the dead or wounded off the field except the ambulance corps. We then crossed over a rail fence where our Lieutenant McMatthews and Lieutenant Alexander were both wounded. That left us with a captain and 1 lieutenant. After this we got into battle in earnest and lost in our company very heavily, both killed and wounded. This fight lasted 4 hours and a half, when at last we drove them clear out of town and took at least 3,000 prisoners. They also lost very heavily in killed and wounded, which all fell into our hands. After the fight, our company was ordered to pick up all straggling Yankees in town and bring them together to be brought to the rear as prisoners. One fellow I took up could not speak 1 word of English, and the first thing he asked me in German was, "Will I get my pay in prison?" After we had them all put up in a pen, we went to our regiment and rested. Major Iredell of our regiment came to me and shook my hand and also complimented me for action in the fight. At dusk I was about going to hunt up my brother Morris when he came to me. Thank God we are both safe as yet. We laid all night among the dead Yankees, but they did not disturb our peaceful slumbers.